Uncle Mark is being a jerk again. Those 7 words from my 9-year-old daughter Madison would end up costing my brother-in-law his $180,000 a year job, his marriage, and ultimately land him in county jail for 6 months. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Nathan Cross, I'm 34 years old, and I work as a network security analyst for Meridian Tech Solutions here in Portland, Oregon. What happened last Christmas changed everything about how our family gatherings work, and honestly, I couldn't be happier about it. It was December 25th, 2023, around 6:47 p.m., when Mark Brennan, my wife Sarah's older brother, threw the first punch. I was carving the ham when his fist connected with my jaw, sending me stumbling backward into our dining room wall. The Christmas tree lights flickered as I caught myself, and that's when I heard Madison's calm, clear voice from the kitchen. 911? Yeah, hi, Uncle Mark is being a jerk again, and he just hit my daddy. I didn't know she was recording everything on her phone. 9-year-olds these days, right? Let me back up and explain how we got there, because Mark's Christmas meltdown didn't happen in a vacuum. It was the culmination of 15 years of increasingly erratic behavior that my wife's family had been enabling and excusing. Mark was 38, worked as a senior project manager at Cascade Development Group, one of Portland's most prestigious construction firms. He made good money, drove a BMW X5, lived in an $850,000 house in Lake Oswego, and never let anyone forget how successful he was. The problem was, success had made him mean. Every family gathering became an opportunity for Mark to hold court. Usually after his 3rd bourbon, he'd lecture everyone about their life choices, their careers, their parenting. When Sarah and I bought our modest 3-bedroom house in Gresham back in 2018, Mark spent the entire housewarming party talking about how we'd settled for less and should have leveraged better, like he did. When Madison was diagnosed with dyslexia at age 7, Mark helpfully suggested we put her in a different kind of school for kids with learning problems. When I started my own IT consulting business on the side, he asked loudly at Thanksgiving 2022 whether I had given up on having a real career. But Sarah's parents, Robert and Eleanor, always made excuses. That's just how Mark is. He means well. He's been under a lot of stress at work. The family had been walking on eggshells. Around Mark's temper for so long, they'd forgotten what normal looked like. The breaking point started 3 weeks before Christmas 2023. Sarah and I were hosting Christmas dinner for the first time in our 9 years of marriage. We'd volunteered because Eleanor had hip surgery in November and their usual hosting duties needed to be covered. I was actually excited about it. I love cooking, and Madison was old enough to help with preparations. Mark, however, was not pleased with the venue change. Seriously? We're doing Christmas at Nathan's tiny house now, he said during a December 3rd phone call with Sarah. I was in the kitchen, but could hear every word through our thin walls. I guess we'll all just squeeze around that little IKEA table of yours. Sarah handled it diplomatically. We have the dining room extension, Mark. It'll seat 10 comfortably. If you say so, I just hope the food's better than last year. Now that comment stung because Sarah had cooked Thanksgiving dinner last year and she'd spent 2 days preparing everything from scratch. But I said nothing. Sarah asked me not to engage with Mark's comments, so I didn't, but then Mark pushed it further. On December 15th, he showed up at our house unannounced around 8 p.m. Madison was doing homework at the kitchen table and Sarah was helping her with a reading assignment. I was in my home office reviewing security protocols for a client. Hey, Nathan, Mark called out as he walked in without knocking. We need to talk about Christmas dinner. I came out of the office to find him standing in our living room, still wearing his work suit, but with his tie loosened and the smell of alcohol on his breath. What's up, Mark? Look, I appreciate you and Sarah trying to help out while Mom's recovering, but I've been thinking we should probably cater the whole thing. You know, make it professional. I can cover the cost. The implication was clear. He didn't trust us to cook a proper Christmas dinner. That's generous, I said carefully, but Sarah's already planned the menu and bought most of the ingredients. She's really looking forward to cooking. Mark sat down heavily on our couch without being invited. Nathan, buddy, no offense, but this is important. We're talking about Christmas dinner, not some random Tuesday night meal. My clients might drop by afterward. I mentioned I'd be in the area. Your clients? Yeah, Doug Harrison from the mayor's office usually stops by our family Christmas. And Jennifer Walsh from Pacific Northwest Banking. You know, people who matter. Madison looked up from her homework. Daddy? Who's the loud man? This is Uncle Mark, sweetheart. He's Mommy's brother. Oh, why is he being rude? Mark's face reddened. I'm not being rude, kiddo. I'm just trying to make sure Christmas dinner doesn't turn into a disaster. That's when Sarah emerged from the kitchen, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. Mark, what are you doing here? Trying to save Christmas, he said with a laugh that had no humor in it. Look, Sarah, I know you mean well, but let's be realistic about your cooking skills. Remember the Easter ham from 2019? What about it? It was dry as cardboard, and the potatoes were undercooked. And don't get me started on that weird stuffing recipe you tried. I watched my wife's face change. Sarah is an excellent cook. She'd taken classes at Portland Community College and regularly made elaborate meals from scratch. The Easter dinner Mark was talking about had been praised by everyone else who attended. That seemed to go over well with everyone, Sarah said quietly. People were just being polite. That's what family does. Something shifted in the room's energy. Madison had stopped pretending to do homework and was watching this exchange with the intense focus kids get when they sense adult conflict. Mark, I said, I think we should probably stick with Sarah's menu, but thank you for the offer. Nathan, I'm trying to help you out here. You're in over your head. We'll manage. Will you? Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a recipe for disaster. Small house, amateur cooks, no experience hosting anything bigger than a pizza party. Madison piped up again. Why is Uncle Mark being mean to Mommy and Daddy? I'm not being mean, sweetheart. I'm being realistic. It sounds mean to me, Madison said with the brutal honesty of a 9-year-old. Mark turned to look at her directly. Well, when you're older, you'll understand that sometimes adults have to make tough decisions to prevent bigger problems. Like what problems? Like ruining Christmas for the whole family? That's when I reach my limit. Not explosion angry, but cold-focused angry. The kind of anger that makes you very, very careful about what you do next. Madison, why don't you go finish your homework in your room? But I want to listen to... Room! Now! She gathered her books with the dramatic sighing of a thwarted 9-year-old and headed upstairs. Once she was gone, I sat down across from Mark. Here's what's going to happen, I said quietly. Sarah is going to cook Christmas dinner exactly as she planned. We're going to host it in our house. Your clients are welcome if they want to come, but they'll be eating Sarah's cooking, not catered food. Mark leaned forward. Nathan, I'm not done. You're going to apologize to my wife for insulting her cooking. You're going to apologize for showing up drunk at our house. And you're going to treat both of us with basic respect, or you can spend Christmas somewhere else. Excuse me? You heard me. Mark stood up so fast he knocked over Sarah's coffee mug on the side table. Are you seriously trying to uninvite me from family Christmas? I'm seriously telling you that your behavior tonight is unacceptable. My behavior? I come over? Here trying to help, and you... Mark! Sarah's voice cut through his building rant. Just go home. We'll talk later. He stared at her for a long moment, then at me. This is a mistake. You're going to embarrass the whole family. Then don't come, I said. He left without another word, but I could hear him on the phone before he even reached his BMW, probably calling his parents to complain about us. 20 minutes later, Sarah's phone rang. It was Eleanor. Honey, came Eleanor's tired voice through the speaker. Mark is very upset. He says Nathan was hostile and threatened to uninvite him from Christmas. Mom, Mark showed up here drunk and spent 15 minutes insulting my cooking in our house. He's been under a lot of pressure at work. That big downtown project is giving him ulcers. That doesn't give him the right to treat us like this. Of course not. But you know how he gets when he's stressed. Maybe you could apologize just to smooth things over. I watched my wife's face as her mother asked her to apologize for being insulted in her own home. No, Mom, I'm not apologizing. Mark owes us an apology. Sarah, please, it's Christmas. Can't we all just get along? We can get along fine. After Mark apologizes. Eleanor sighed. I'll talk to him. But Mark never apologized. Instead, he spent the next 10 days sending passive-aggressive texts about Christmas dinner planning, each one designed to undermine Sarah's confidence. Hope you're planning to start the turkey early. Those big birds can be tricky. Don't forget the Heimlich maneuver, choking hazards and all that. Haha. Mom's bringing Tums, just in case. Sarah showed me each message, and I watched her second-guess every menu decision. She researched cooking temperatures obsessively, bought a meat thermometer, practiced her stuffing recipe twice. It broke my heart to see Mark's psychological warfare working. But I had my own preparations to make. See, Mark didn't know that my job in network security had taught me quite a bit about information gathering. Not hacking. I'm very careful about staying on the right side of the law, but I know how to research people thoroughly using only publicly available information. Mark's LinkedIn showed he'd been at Cascade Development Group for 8 years, working his way up from junior project manager to senior project manager. His salary range was publicly listed in the company's annual report, $165,000 to $195,000 for his position level. A quick search of Portland City permits showed that Cascade had been involved in several major downtown projects over the past 2 years. The company website featured Mark prominently in their Meet Our Team section, where he was described as leading our downtown revitalization initiatives. But here's what bothered me. Mark's lifestyle seemed expensive even for his salary range. The house in Lake Oswego, the BMW, the frequent expensive restaurants he'd posted about on social media, the designer clothes, the Rolex I'd noticed at Thanksgiving. Call it professional paranoia, but people in network security develop instincts about when something doesn't add up. So I did what I do best. I started documenting everything. Every aggressive text message, every phone conversation Sarah shared with me, every time Mark showed up uninvited or intoxicated. I kept a simple spreadsheet with dates, times, and descriptions. Not for any specific purpose initially, just because documentation is second nature in my line of work. I also started paying closer attention to Mark's social media activity. His Facebook and Instagram were public, and he posted frequently about work events, expensive meals, and weekend trips that seemed pretty lavish for someone in his position. On December 20th, I noticed something interesting. Mark had posted photos from what appeared to be a very expensive dinner at Le Pigeon. One of Portland's most exclusive restaurants. The wine alone in those photos probably cost $400. The caption read, "Celebrating another successful project completion with my team, Cascade Development, Down Tower Projects." But here's what caught my attention. According to the Portland Business Journal, Cascade Development Group was facing serious budget constraints in Q4 2023. They'd announced layoffs in November and delayed 2 major projects due to funding issues. Companies facing budget constraints don't usually pay for $1,100 team dinners at Le Pigeon. I filed that information away and kept preparing for Christmas dinner. December 25th started beautifully. Sarah was up at 6 a.m., calm and confident, executing her menu like a professional chef. The turkey went in at exactly the right time. The sides were prepped and ready, and our dining room looked gorgeous with Eleanor's good china and the Christmas decorations Madison had made. Robert and Eleanor arrived first at 2 p.m. Eleanor was still moving slowly from her hip surgery, but she was in good spirits and kept praising how wonderful everything smelled. "Sarah, honey, this is just beautiful. The house looks perfect." Robert, a retired electrician and possibly the kindest man I've ever met, spent an hour playing board games with Madison and genuinely seemed to be having a great time. Mark and his wife Lisa arrived at 4:30 p.m., and I could immediately tell he'd been drinking. Not stumbling drunk, but that loose-limbed, louder-than-normal drunk that people think they're hiding but absolutely aren't. Well, he announced as he walked in. "Something smells interesting." Lisa shot him a warning look. "It smells delicious, Sarah. Thank you so much for hosting." Lisa was a kindergarten teacher, soft-spoken and kind, and I'd always wondered what she saw in Mark. They'd been married for 12 years but never had children, which Mark attributed to career priorities, but Lisa's wistful looks around Madison made me suspect was more complicated. "Drink, Mark?" I offered. "Already got one." He held up a travel mug that definitely didn't contain coffee. The first 2 hours went smoothly despite Mark's condition. Dinner was served at 5:30 p.m., and it was genuinely perfect. The turkey was juicy, the sides were flavorful, and even Mark grudgingly admitted the stuffing was not bad. But Mark kept drinking throughout dinner, refilling his travel mug from a flask he'd brought in his jacket pocket. By 6:30 p.m., he was getting belligerent. "You know what this family needs?" he announced during dessert. "Some real success stories. Some real accomplishments to be proud of." "Mark?" Lisa said quietly. "No, I'm serious. We're always celebrating these little participation trophy moments. Sarah cooks a decent meal. Congratulations. Nathan fixes someone's computer. Amazing. Madison learns to read. Incredible achievement." "Learning to read is an incredible achievement," Robert said mildly. "For a normal kid, sure. But Madison's got that learning disability thing, so the bar is pretty low." The table went silent. Madison, who'd been happily eating apple pie, looked up with confusion. "What's a learning disability?" she asked. "It means," Mark started. "It means your brain works a little differently than other kids' brains," I said quickly, "which makes you creative and special." "And slower," Mark added with a laugh. "Mark, Eleanor's..." Voice was sharp. "That's enough." "What?" "I'm just being honest. We're all thinking it." "No," Sarah said firmly. "We're not." Mark turned to focus on Sarah with the intense attention drunk people get when they're looking for a fight. "Oh, come on, Sarah. You homeschool her because the regular schools can't handle her problems. Let's not pretend." "We homeschool Madison because she learns better in a flexible environment," I said, keeping my voice level. "Right, because she can't keep up with normal kids." Madison's eyes were getting big. She might not have understood all the words, but she understood that Uncle Mark was saying mean things about her. "Why don't we change the subject?" Lisa suggested desperately. "Why? Because the truth is uncomfortable? This whole family has a problem with facing reality." "What reality is that?" I asked. Mark gestured around our dining room with his fork. This whole performance. Pretending like this is some kind of success, huh?" "Story. You work for other people, Nathan. You fix their problems for them. You don't build anything. You don't create anything. You just maintain stuff." "Mark," Eleanor started, "and Sarah, teaching one kid at home isn't a career. It's barely a hobby. My Lisa teaches 30 kids, actual normal kids who learn at normal speeds." Lisa's face had gone bright red. "Mark, please stop." "Stop what?" "Telling the truth." Someone needs to tell the truth around here. He took another long drink from his travel mug and focused on me again. You want to know what your problem is, Nathan? You think small house, small job, small ambitions. You've got no vision. And what's your vision, Mark? I asked. Success. Real success. I make more in 6 months than you make in a year. I drive a car that costs more than your annual salary. I live in a neighborhood where people matter. People matter everywhere, Sarah said. No, they don't. Some people contribute to society, and some people just exist. Some people build cities, and some people fix computers when they break. Madison had stopped eating and was just staring at Mark with the kind of fascination kids have for car accidents. Uncle Mark, she said in her clear, carrying voice, are you drunk? The table froze. Even Mark stopped talking. What did you say? He asked. Are you drunk? You're talking loud and being mean, and Daddy says those are signs that people are drunk. I'm not drunk. You smell like the medicine cabinet, and you keep drinking from that cup. Mark's face was darkening. The genial, condescending drunk was evolving into something uglier. Maybe, he said. Little girls should mind their own business. Maybe? Madison shot back. Big boys should use their inside voices. Robert actually chuckled at that, which made Mark's face go even redder. Don't laugh at me, Dad. I'm not laughing at you, son. I'm laughing at Madison's sass. No, you're laughing at me. You're all laughing at me. Poor Mark can't handle his liquor. Poor Mark getting told off by a 9-year-old with a learning disability. Mark! Sarah's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. What? What did I say that wasn't true? That's when I stood up from the table. I think you should go home now. Mark stared up at me from his chair. Excuse me? You're drunk, you're insulting our daughter, and you're ruining Christmas dinner. It's time for you to leave. I'm not going anywhere. Yes, you are. Mark pushed back from the table and stood up unsteadily. Even drunk, he was about 6 inches taller than me and probably 40 pounds heavier. You don't get to kick me out of family Christmas. This is my house. I absolutely get to do that. Your house? Mark laughed, but it was an ugly sound. This little cracker box. You're going to throw me out of this pathetic little cracker box? Mark, Robert's voice held a warning. Sit down. No, Dad. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of acting like Nathan's some kind of success story when he's just mediocre. Aggressively mediocre. He turned back to me, swaying slightly. You know what your real problem is? You married up. Sarah could have done better, but she settled for the first guy who was nice to her. And now she's stuck in this tiny house with a broken kid and a husband who fixes computers for a living. The room went dead silent except for the sound of Mark's heavy breathing. Madison was staring at him with wide eyes, not fully understanding, but knowing something very bad was happening. Lisa had covered her face with her hands. Eleanor was gripping Robert's arm so hard her knuckles were white. Sarah was looking at her brother like she'd never seen him before. And I was calculating angles and wondering if I'd need to physically remove him from our house. Get out, I said quietly. Make me. Mark, Robert started to stand. Sit down, Dad. This is between me and the computer guy. He stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell the bourbon on his breath and see the burst blood vessels in his eyes. You think you're so much better than me? You think your pathetic little life is something to be proud of? I think you're drunk and embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing myself? I make more money than you'll ever see. I have real responsibilities, and I build things that matter. What do you build, Mark? I build the future of this city. I make decisions that affect thousands of people. You push papers around and take credit for other people's work. The slap happened so fast, I almost didn't see it coming. Mark's open palm caught me across the face hard enough to snap my head to the side. Madison screamed, Lisa gasped, Eleanor cried out. Robert started to get up, and Mark drew back his fist for a real punch. That's when I heard Madison's voice, calm and clear from behind me. 911. Yeah, hi, Uncle Mark is being a jerk. Again, and he just hit my daddy. Mark's fist connected with my jaw as I turned to look at Madison, who was standing in the kitchen doorway with her phone pressed to her ear. The punch sent me stumbling backward into the wall, knocking over Eleanor's china cabinet and sending Christmas decorations cascading to the floor. And now he punched him, too. Madison continued into the phone in that matter-of-fact tone kids use to describe traumatic events. Can you send someone to help, Uncle? Mark is really drunk and being super mean to everyone. Mark stood there swaying, staring at Madison with dawning horror as he realized what had just happened. Madison, hang up the phone, he said. No, thank you, Madison replied politely. Yes, ma'am, I'm still here. My address is 847 Cherry Creek Drive. Yes, that's in Gresham. No, the drunk man is my uncle, not a stranger. Hang up the phone, Mark roared. Uncle Mark, you need to use your inside voice when I'm talking to. 911. Yes, ma'am, he's yelling now, too. That's when Mark lunged toward Madison. And that's when I stopped being careful about proportional response and put my brother-in-law on the floor with a takedown that would have made my high school wrestling coach proud. Mark hit our hardwood floor face first with a sound like a dropped watermelon. Now Uncle Mark is on the floor, Madison reported helpfully. My daddy put him there. I think that's good because Uncle Mark was trying to grab my phone. Yes, ma'am, the police should probably come pretty quick. By the time the Gresham Police Department arrived 12 minutes later, Mark was awake but still on the floor. Lisa was crying. Eleanor was in shock. Robert was checking to make sure I wasn't seriously injured. Sarah was comforting Madison, and I was standing over my brother-in-law making sure he didn't try to get up. But here's the thing about Madison that I was about to learn. She'd been recording everything on her phone before she called 911. Everything. The whole dinner conversation, Mark's drunken rant, the slap, the punch, his lunge toward her, everything. She'd started recording when Mark began talking about truth and reality because, as she told the police officers, Uncle Mark was being scary and I thought Daddy might need proof. 9 years old and she was already thinking about evidence. Officer Jennifer Martinez and Officer David Chen were professional and thorough. They took statements from everyone, photographed my injuries, a split lip and a bruise on my jaw that would turn spectacular colors over the next week, and reviewed Madison's video recording. Mark, sobering up rapidly in the presence of law enforcement, tried to minimize what had happened. It was a family argument that got out of hand. The kid blew it out of proportion. Officer Martinez, a woman about Sarah's age with no patience for drunk men who hit people at Christmas dinner, raised an eyebrow. Sir, I'm looking at video evidence of you striking this man twice and attempting to assault a minor child. Which part did she blow out of proportion? I didn't assault anyone. I barely touched him. You slapped him, then punched him, then tried to grab the child's phone while she was calling 911. That's assault and attempted interference with emergency services. She's 9 years old. She doesn't understand. She understands enough to call for help when an adult was being violent in her home. Mark was arrested for assault, public intoxication, and attempted interference with emergency services. Lisa rode with him to the station, apologizing to everyone as they left. But the real consequence wouldn't become apparent until 3 days later when Madison showed me something on her iPad. Daddy, am I famous? She was scrolling through TikTok, where someone had posted her 911 call with the caption, 9-year-old calls 911 on drunk uncle. Uncle Mark is being a jerk again. My heart sank. Madison, honey, where did this come from? I don't know. Emma at school sent it to me. She said everyone's sharing it. The video had 2.3 million views. I grabbed my laptop and started searching. The 911 call was everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Someone had got hold of the audio, probably from a police scanner app, and it was going viral with hashtags like Uncle Mark, or jerk uncle, or smart kid, or 911 call. The audio was crystal clear. Madison, 911? Yeah, hi. Uncle Mark is being a jerk again and he just hit my daddy. Dispatcher, okay, honey, slow down. What's happening? Madison, my uncle came to Christmas dinner and he got really drunk and started saying mean things about me and mommy and daddy, and then he hit my daddy, and now he punched him too. Can you send someone to help? Uncle Mark is really drunk and being super mean to everyone. Dispatcher, are you safe right now? Madison, I think so. I'm in the kitchen and Daddy's in the dining room with Uncle Mark. Uncle Mark is really drunk and being super mean to everyone. Dispatcher, okay, what's your address? Madison, 847 Cherry Creek Drive. That's in Gresham. The drunk man is my uncle, not a stranger, but he's still being really scary. Then Mark's voice, loud and slurred. Hang up the phone. Madison, calm as anything. Uncle Mark, you need to use your inside voice when I'm talking to 911. Yes, ma'am, he's yelling now too. The sound of scuffling, then Madison again. Now Uncle Mark is on the floor. My daddy put him there. I think that's good because Uncle Mark was trying to grab my phone. The internet was obsessed with Madison's politeness and calm demeanor during the call. Comments range from this kid is going places to best 911 call ever to someone give this girl an award for keeping calm under pressure. But they were also obsessed with Uncle Mark. Uncle Mark started trending on Twitter. People were making memes about drunk relatives at holiday dinners. Someone created a Uncle Mark bingo game with squares like insults the host, brings up salaries, gets violent when corrected, and tries to silence children. The Portland area social media community was having a field day trying to identify the real Uncle Mark. Several Marks in the area were getting tagged and having to post denials, but it was only a matter of time. On December 28th, a Twitter user with the handle, a Portland BizWatch posted, pretty sure our Uncle Mark is Mark Brennan from Cascade Development Group. Voice matches their company video and timeline fits. Within 6 hours, Mark's professional life started unraveling. Cascade Development Group's main phone number was flooded with calls asking if they employed Uncle Mark. Their social media accounts were bombarded with comments and memes. The company video Portland BizWatch had referenced a promotional piece featuring Mark talking about family values and construction was getting shared with laughing emoji. But the real problem wasn't the internet mockery. The real problem was that Mark's arrest had triggered a background check at Cascade Development Group, which led to an audit of his recent projects, which led to the discovery of some very interesting financial irregularities. Remember those expensive dinners and lavish purchases that seemed beyond Mark's salary range? It turns out there was a reason for that. On January 3rd, 2024, Mark was arrested again, this time for embezzlement, fraud, and theft of company funds totaling $127,000 over 8 months. The expensive dinners had been charged to client accounts for projects that didn't exist. The team-building activities were fictional. Mark had been creating fake invoices and billing imaginary expenses to real clients, pocketing the difference. Cascade Development Group's investigation revealed that Mark had been running this scheme since April 2023, using his access to client accounts and his trusted position to steal systematically from company funds. The Portland Business Journal ran the story on January 5th. Viral Uncle Mark arrested for embezzling $127K from construction firm. The story detailed not just the embezzlement, but also connected it back to the Christmas dinner assault. Reporters had managed to piece together the whole timeline: the viral 911 call, Mark's identification by internet sleuths, the subsequent background check, and the discovery of his financial crimes. Mark made the news again on January 12th when Lisa filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and public humiliation. But we weren't done yet. Because remember, I document everything. On January 15th, I received a call from Detective Sandra Rodriguez with the Gresham Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit. Mr. Cross, I'm calling about the Mark Brennan case. We understand you work in network security? That's right. We're wondering if you might be able to help us with something. We've recovered Mr. Brennan's work laptop, and we're having trouble accessing some encrypted files that might contain evidence of additional financial crimes. I'd be happy to consult on that. There's something else. Mr. Brennan's attorney is claiming that the original 911 call was somehow fabricated or edited to make his client look worse. Do you know anything about that? I smiled. Detective, I can prove those recordings are authentic. My daughter's phone has metadata and timestamps that will substantiate every second of that audio. Plus, I have additional video evidence that wasn't released publicly. Additional video evidence? Madison was recording for several minutes before she called 911. The viral audio is just the phone call. There's also video of the entire assault, Mark's threats, his attempt to grab the phone from a child, everything. There was a pause. Would you be willing to provide that evidence? Absolutely. 2 weeks later, Mark pled guilty to all charges rather than face trial with the additional evidence. The video recording showed not just his assault on me, but also his attempt to physically intimidate a 9-year-old child, his threats about consequences if Madison didn't delete the recording, and several statements that demonstrated clear consciousness of guilt. His lawyer had apparently watched the full video and advised him that no jury in America would side with a man who drunkenly threatened a polite 9-year-old on Christmas. Mark was sentenced to 18 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and ordered to pay $127,000 in restitution to Cascade Development Group. But the story doesn't end there. On March 15th, 2024, I received an unexpected phone call. Mr. Cross, this is Jennifer Walsh from Pacific Northwest Banking. I believe you know our mutual acquaintance, Mark Brennan. I remember that name from Mark's Christmas rant, one of the important people who supposedly attended family gatherings. I know who Mark is, but I'm not sure I'd call us mutual acquaintances. Well, that's actually why I'm calling. We heard about your role in exposing Mark's financial crimes, and we're impressed with your investigative skills. We have a position opening in our fraud detection department, and frankly, we could use someone with your attention to detail and technical background. The job offer was for $95,000 a year, a significant raise for my consulting work, with full benefits and opportunities for advancement. Why are you interested in me specifically? I asked. Because you documented everything. Most people would have just called the police the night of the assault and let it go, but you gathered evidence, preserved recordings, maintained detailed records. That's exactly the kind of methodical approach we need in fraud detection. I accepted the position and started in April. Madison, meanwhile, became something of a local celebrity. The Gresham Police Department invited her to speak at a community event about when and how to call 911. She handled it with the same calm competence she'd shown on Christmas night, explaining to other kids that grown-ups sometimes need help too, and that it's okay to ask for help when someone is being scary. She also started a small business making emergency information, cards for other kids, laminated cards with important phone numbers and addresses that kids could keep with them. The local fire department bought 100 of them to distribute at school visits. Sarah started teaching cooking classes at the community center, partly to rebuild her confidence after Mark's psychological warfare, but mostly because she genuinely loves sharing kitchen skills. Her classes fill up immediately, and she's considering expanded offerings. Eleanor and Robert have what can only be described as a new lease on life. Without Mark's constant negativity dominating family gatherings, they've become more social and engaged. Robert started volunteering at Madison's homeschool co-op, teaching basic electrical skills to older kids. Eleanor, freed from the exhausting job of managing Mark's moods and making excuses for his behavior, has rediscovered her sense of humor and started hosting weekly game nights for the family. As for Mark, he was released from jail in September 2024 after serving 8 months. He's currently working at a lumberyard in Bend, Oregon, living in a studio apartment and driving a 15-year-old Honda Civic. Lisa kept the house and the divorce settlement, along with most of their assets. He's not invited to family gatherings anymore. The viral 911 call eventually faded from internet attention, but it pops up regularly during holidays when people share crazy family stories. Madison, now 10, finds it mildly embarrassing, but also kind of cool that she's TikTok famous. But here's what I learned from the whole experience. Sometimes the best revenge is just letting people reveal who they really are, and making sure there's a good recording device nearby when they do it. Mark destroyed himself. I just documented the process. And Madison? She's got a natural career ahead of her in law enforcement or journalism. Any kid who can maintain that level of calm competence while calling 911 on her drunk uncle has the temperament for crisis management. Plus, she still keeps detailed notes about everything that happens around her, like father, like daughter, I guess. And last Christmas was peaceful, mark-free, and absolutely perfect. Sarah's cooking was praised by everyone, genuinely this time, not just out of politeness. Madison helped serve dinner and told everyone about her 911 training program. And when Robert raised his glass for the traditional Christmas toast, he said, to family, the people who love and support each other no matter what. Everyone drank to that, even the ones who weren't there. Sometimes karma needs a 9-year-old with a smartphone and excellent documentation skills. Madison's 911 call didn't just go viral. It exposed years of financial crimes and freed our whole family from walking on eggshells around one toxic person. The internet can be a terrible place, but occasionally it serves justice exactly where it's needed. Mark lost his job, his marriage, his freedom, and his place in the family because he couldn't resist being cruel to a child on Christmas. Meanwhile, that same child's quick thinking and calm response opened doors for everyone else. I've learned that the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better. And sometimes getting better means helping someone face the consequences of their own choices. Uncle Mark is still being a jerk. He's just doing it alone now,